guys, it's been well over 30 minutes. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off with this gumbo. I just have the seasonings, the onions, bell peppers, and garlic in here cooking, and it's cooking down well. Really, gumbo doesn't take long for it to mesh together. Like I said, the biggest thing is the preparation. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my roux in, and then I'm going to add my okra and kind of see where I'm at with the seasonings. The only thing you want to be mindful of is try not to put your meat in too early, especially like the chicken, because you don't want it to cook up where it's falling off the bone like that. You do want to keep it intact. Just remember it's already been cooked. One thing I forgot to also let you know to add when you start boiling your seasoning. This is, you can't really see it, but I like to put bay leaves in there. It just adds an extra flavor. You do not eat the bay leaves. You just let them cook in there with the seasoning. Of course, I love McCormick anything. They have a package that you can get. You can also, if you are a Whole Foods person, you can buy it by the ounce, like from H-E-B, Fiesta, wherever you go, and it's really cheap. So I did add that when I put the seasoning in there. As far as this roux is concerned, I generally put for this amount of gumbo, I probably will put maybe like a half of a jar at least in there. And you just kind of add it to the water and let it start to melt. Not really melt, but to dissolve more than anything. You can, roux lasts a long time because, like I said, it's just oil and flour. There is an expiration date, but it's like you can use it, keep it forever. If you put it in the refrigerator, it would be easier if you take it out maybe like an hour, 30 minutes before. Just to make it easier to get out of the jar. And you're just basically going to spoon it in. Some people also use roux to make like gravies and stuff like that. I'm not a big gravy person, but if you want to use it for that, you can use it to make gravies and stuff like that. But if it's if I'm making like some type of a stew or something like that, I'll use the roux for that as well. And Tony Chachere's also has like a powdered roux. And you can use that. The only thing with that is that you have to use so much of it in order to get the right thickness. And then sometimes, depending on when you add it, it thickens after the fact. And so then you have something that's real thick, thicker than you'd like. And even with your gumbo, you can kind of put it to your own preference, how thick you like it. I don't really like watery gumbo, so I usually generally make mine a little on the thicker side. But if you like yours a little less thick, then just add more water. Everything is pretty much subject to your own preference. So I'm just going to add that and stir that in. And you definitely want to make sure that you stir it well. That roux can start to stick at the bottom. And then, I mean, you don't want to burn a whole pot of gumbo, because if you make a good gumbo, it is kind of pricey. It's not cheap. Unless you want to do like what my mom would call poor man's gumbo. You just put whatever's in the refrigerator, like just some chicken or just some sausage, or you can use whatever kind of meat you want, really and truly. I have had gumbo with turkey necks in it, chicken gizzards, and it's all good. It just depends on what your preference is. I've even had some with smoked garfish in it. As long as you season it well, it should be okay. But I'm not one of those people. I've had some people put, oh gosh, corn, lima beans. Oh no, I don't. put vegetables. Basically, for me, a gumbo is a lot of meat, and I'm not a big meat eater. But I will make gumbo with a lot of meat in there. So all I'm doing right now is just making sure that this roux is mixing and not sticking at the bottom of the pot.
Now, is there such thing as a Mexican gumbo?
If there is, I haven't had it. By definition, a gumbo is just a compilation of a bunch of stuff. So you definitely can make a gumbo however you want. Technically, gumbo is supposed to be a soup. I still have trouble accepting that. But so you can put whatever you want. Some people put, if you're doing just like a regular, just a seafood gumbo, some people will put oysters in there. I've had a gumbo with fresh fish in there. It was nasty. I don't recommend that. But you can kind of tweak it however you want. This is just typically how gumbo is usually in Louisiana. And like I said, if you're allergic to seafood, you don't have to put it in there. My mom puts, if you just want the flavoring in there, you can buy like shrimp flakes, like they have the powdered shrimp seasoning, and to give it that flavor without the shrimp in there. Although if you're allergic to shrimp, I think you probably should just stay away from it altogether. And some people will put like the little dried shrimp in there for the flavor. I don't particularly care for it, so I don't use it. But it's really up to your preference. Hope that answers your question. Just checking to make sure that this roux is dissolving, and if you'll look and see that the water is starting to get brown, and those little things, these are the bay leaves. They don't get soft, they stay like that pretty much. I'm gonna add some more of this roux in here.
How long have you been making gumbo?
How long? I guess all of my adult life. I mean, you know, I love to cook, but when I go home, I don't cook because I have a family of people who love to cook. So.
And where is home? The people would like to know where is home.
Home is in Louisiana, a small town. The name of it is Donaldsonville. It is just as small as it sounds. You have to know that's where you're looking for. Other than that, you will not find it. But that's where, I mean, I just kind of watch my mom and my family when they would cook and just do what they do and just keep it going. So I would guess most of my adult life is how long I've been making gumbo.
Smells good.
Now I'm gonna I probably will add some more roux, but I want to add my okra now because, like I said, okra is a thickening agent, and I don't want it to be too thick. So I'm gonna add the okra. This is the okra cooked down. Some people, like at home, they probably would cook this down a little bit more, but I don't want to cook it up to the point that you can't tell that it's in there. Although some people prefer it like that. Not everybody likes okra, so I'm hoping the people who will be eating this gumbo like it.
Well, I can't wait to have a bowl of it.
I'm sure. I know that you will enjoy it. And you really can't taste the okra, to be quite honest. It's not like, oh, there's a bunch of okra in here. I just like it because it adds more texture to the gumbo. And just to make things easier, I generally clean as I go because most people, by the time you finish cooking, you don't feel like having to clean it up. So I do encourage you to do that. So I'm going to add a little bit more roux, but before I do that, I'm going to get a separate spoon so that I can taste this and make sure that there's enough seasoning, which I don't think it is. But the more you do it, the more you kind of can, you can gauge how much seasoning you need for certain things. I'm going to add some more salt. I prefer sea salt. For some reason, it's supposed to be healthier for you. I think it probably has, I don't think it has all that iodine in there either, but I'm going to use some of this coarse sea salt. I usually use this grinder, but because this is such a large amount of liquid that I'm trying to season, I'm going to leave it whole like that. You can do that, just be mindful that it doesn't take as much. So just kind of put a little bit and kind of taste, because you don't want it to be too salty. I'm going to put a little more of the seasoned salt. I'm going to try to stay away from the Tony Chachere's. I tasted the sausage that I use, and there are a few that I recommend. The one that I got this time was the Double D sausage. They didn't have the regular smoked sausage, so I got the hot sausage, so it is a bit spicy. So I don't want to make the gumbo too spicy for anybody. But some of the Double D's is a good sausage that I found out here. I've been told that, I'm trying to think of that other name. It's going to come to me. It was here a minute ago, but seemed to have left my my thought process. There's a, if you're in Louisiana and you have access to Viron, they have a good sausage. I try to mix my sausage. I always try to use an andouille sausage. It has a different texture than regular sausage, and it's usually, the flavor is a little bit different too, but mostly it's the texture that's different as well. I've not found a brand that I truly just absolutely love out here, so just find whatever you can find. But if you're in South Louisiana, you'll be able to find a good one. They're almost all good. Trying to think of another sausage. Earl Campbell's is supposed to be a good sausage. I like Earl Campbell, just not so much for gumbo. But if you have that, you can use it. And I think there's like a, just make sure you look on the label, honestly. And if you can find one that's from like Lake Charles, Lafayette, they're usually pretty good sausages across the board. So I used, this was a half of a container. I used all of that. I'm going to put maybe about a tablespoon more of this roux. And if you look, you'll see that the water is a nice brown color. As compared to when we first started, it just was some regular water. Just be mindful that you don't want to add too much, because like I still have all the meat to add. I have to add the sausage, the chicken, the shrimp, and the crabs.
Is that the last process? The last part of the process?
It is. I typically will add the shrimp and the crabs last, of course, because they really just the heat of the water is going to cook them. You don't want to put especially the shrimp in too early because then it gets real rubbery. And the other meat, it was in the oven already, so it's technically cooked. It just has to mesh with the other ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and add the parsley. Like I said, this was about a half of a bunch. This is Italian parsley. You can use whatever kind you want. I just used that one because the regular parsley was looking a little sickly at the store. And you can add however much you want. You can use the dried flakes. I prefer fresh stuff, so that's why I just use the fresh one. But if you have dried parsley, it'll work just as well.
It's coming along.
I'm gonna put that back there. I'm gonna rewash the stove that I used to taste the food at first. And I will sample it again just to make sure. And I mean, I'm just doing this now, but after you get used to it, you really don't have to do all that sampling. You'll know what will work for the volume of fluid that you have. I have already cooked my rice. I do not like cooking rice, so I use a rice cooker. Just regular white rice is fine. If you want to be health conscious, you can use brown rice. I don't, because I know that nobody else would want to eat it with gumbo. You know, some things you just have to like use regular white rice. It's not the most healthy, but it works. So I'm just tasting to make sure that there's enough salt in here. Nothing is worse than a gumbo with no salt. I don't like adding salt to my food, but in the case of gumbo, if I had to, I just have to do it. And a lot of times you have to taste when you don't really use a recipe, which I'm not a recipe person, which is probably why I'm not a baker. Okay, so we'll let that cook for about 10 or 15 minutes, not even really, maybe like 10 minutes, and then I'll be back and I'll add the meat. See you in a bit.